The mining drill screamed against the rock face as Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead. The underground tunnels of Kepler 442b were always hot, always dark, and always filled with the sound of human suffering. 23 years had passed since the Zephyrians conquered the outer colonies, and Jake had spent the last 15 of those years working in these mines. The collar around his neck felt heavier today. Every human wore one of these metal bands that kept them from fighting back. Try to hit a Zephyrian guard and the collar would send lightning through your body until you dropped. Try to remove it, same thing. The aliens were smart that way. Jake looked at his crew of 30 miners as they worked around him. Most had been born here in the mines. They knew nothing except this life of digging crystals from the earth for their alien masters. The lucky ones remembered Earth or the colonies before the conquest. Jake was one of the lucky ones, though some days he wondered if remembering made things better or worse. "Morrison, your section is behind quota," hissed Supervisor Crix, the Zephyrian overseer for Mining Complex 7. The alien stood 8 feet tall with green-scaled skin and yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. His translator device made his voice sound like grinding metal. "You know what happens when humans are lazy?" Jake nodded and said nothing. Speaking back to a Zephyrian meant punishment, not just for him, but for his whole crew. He had learned that lesson years ago when he first arrived here. The aliens called humans useful animals, nothing more. They treated farm animals on Earth better than the Zephyrians treated people. The work continued for hours. Jake's team used their heavy drills to break through rock layers, searching for the blue crystals that powered Zephyrian technology. The crystals were worth more than gold to the aliens, and they forced humans to work in the most dangerous parts of the mines to find them. Around midday, something changed. Jake's drill hit a section of rock that sounded different when struck. Instead of the normal solid thud, he heard an echo. There was empty space behind this wall. "Carl, bring your scanner over here," Jake called to the youngest member of his crew. Carl Davis was only 22 years old and had been born in the mines, but he was the best with alien technology that Jake had ever seen. The kid could make Zephyrian machines do things their own engineers couldn't figure out. Carl ran his scanner along the rock wall where Jake had been drilling. His eyes went wide as he read the results. "There's a big empty space back there, Jake. Maybe 50 feet deep. The rock here is different too, like it was sealed up on purpose." Jake felt his heart speed up. In 15 years of mining, he had never found anything like this. The Zephyrians had surveyed every inch of this planet before they put the mining complexes here. They would never have missed a large empty space unless someone had hidden it. "Very well. Can we break through without the aliens noticing?" Jake asked quietly. Carl studied his scanner again. "The next shift changes in 4 hours. If we work fast and keep the noise down, we might be able to make a small hole. But Jake, if the guards find out we went off course from our assigned tunnel..." Jake knew what Carl meant. Punishment for unauthorized digging was usually death, and not a quick death either. The Zephyrians liked to make examples out of humans who broke the rules. But something inside Jake was telling him this was important. After 15 years of following orders and digging where he was told, he was going to take a risk. "Get Danny and Mike to watch for guards," Jake said. "The rest of us will work on this wall." The next 3 hours were the longest of Jake's life. His crew took turns with the smallest drill they had, carefully cutting a hole just big enough for a person to crawl through. Every sound made them jump. Every footstep in the tunnel made them think a Zephyrian guard was coming to check on them. Finally, Carl's scanner showed they had broken through. Jake shined his light into the hole and saw a large room carved out of the rock. It looked like it had been built by humans, not aliens. The walls were too straight and the angles too clean for natural formation. "I'm going in first," Jake said. "If something happens to me, seal this hole and get back to work. Don't let them know what we found." Jake crawled through the opening and dropped down into the hidden room. His flashlight showed walls covered with human writing and symbols. This was definitely built by people, probably during the early days of the colony before the Zephyrians came. As his eyes got used to the darkness, Jake saw something that made him stop breathing. Along one wall were metal cases with human military markings. Along another wall were computer terminals that looked like they might still work. and in the center of the room was a table covered with papers and data storage devices. Jake opened the first metal case and found weapons. Not mining tools or simple guns, but real military weapons that looked more advanced than anything he had seen before. The second case held ammunition and what looked like pieces of body armor. The third case was full of small electronic devices that he didn't recognize. One by one, his crew crawled through the hole to join him. Carl immediately went to the computer terminals and began trying to turn them on. Lisa Bennett, who had been an engineer before the conquest, started looking through the papers on the table. The rest of the crew just stood and stared at what they had found. "Jake, these computers still work," Carl said with excitement in his voice. "They're running on some kind of backup power that's lasted all these years. And look at this data. These are military plans, weapon designs, things I've never seen before." Lisa looked up from the papers she was reading. Her face was pale, but her eyes were bright with hope. "Jake, this isn't just some old storage room. This is a command center. Someone prepared this place as a base for fighting the Zephyrians. Look at these plans for resistance operations, guerrilla warfare tactics, everything we would need to fight back." Jake felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Real hope. That maybe, just maybe, there was a way to fight their alien masters. For 15 years he had accepted that humans were beaten, that the Zephyrians were too strong and too smart to ever be defeated. But looking at this room full of weapons and plans, he began to think that maybe the humans who built this place knew something the aliens didn't. "Carl, can you copy all this data onto something we can hide?" Jake asked. "Already working on it," Carl replied, his fingers flying over the alien scanner he had modified to interface with human computers. "This is incredible, Jake. Whoever set this up, they knew things about fighting the Zephyrians that I never imagined were possible." As the shift change alarm echoed through the tunnels above them, Jake looked around at his crew. These people, who had lived their whole lives as slaves, were looking at him with something new in their eyes, not just hope, but determination. They carefully sealed the opening and returned to the surface, carrying with them the most important discovery in 23 years of human captivity. The Zephyrians still thought they were dealing with defeated animals. They had no idea that deep under the ground their prisoners had just found the key to their own freedom. 3 months had passed since the discovery in the hidden room. Jake Morrison now looked at the mining tunnels differently. Where he once saw only endless work and suffering, he now saw opportunity. Every tunnel was a potential hiding place. Every work crew was a potential fighting unit. Every day brought them closer to freedom. Lisa Bennett had become the heart of their growing resistance. During her shifts in the processing plant above ground, she had quietly made contact with humans in 4 other mining complexes. The news she brought back was always the same. People were tired of being slaves. They were ready to fight if someone could show them how. Carl Davis spent every free moment studying the data from the hidden room. The military files contained information that amazed him. The humans who had built that cache knew things about warfare that the Zephyrians had never expected to face. Better yet, Carl was learning to combine human military thinking with his knowledge of alien technology. Tonight was different. Tonight was the night they had all been preparing for. Jake checked his watch, a simple device that Carl had modified to receive coded signals from the other complexes. In exactly 2 hours, when the night shift change happened, 5 mining complexes would rise up at the same time. "Everyone ready?" Jake whispered to his crew as they gathered in Tunnel 7. The Zephyrian guards were used to humans taking short breaks during shift changes. They had become lazy after 23 years of controlling people who couldn't fight back. Danny Peterson nodded and patted the small device hidden under his work clothes. It was one of Carl's collar disruptors, built from components they had found in the hidden room. When activated, it would shut down the pain collars within 50 feet. For the first time in decades, humans would be able to touch their alien masters without falling to the ground in agony. Mike Foster carried a mining laser that Lisa's team had modified. It looked like normal equipment, but now it could cut through Zephyrian armor like paper. Each member of Jake's strike team carried similar weapons disguised as mining tools. Above ground, Lisa Bennett waited near the main communication center. Her job was to cut the aliens' ability to call for help from other planets. She had studied the Zephyrian communication systems for months, learning their weak points. When the uprising started, the aliens would find themselves cut off from their empire. At Mining Complex 4, Alex Stone prepared his own team. Alex had been a commander in the colonial fleet before the conquest. For 20 years, he had waited for a chance to fight back. Now, with weapons and plans from the hidden cache, he finally had that chance. Ryan Clark sat at his position in the communication hub of Complex 2. His job was to maintain contact between all 5 uprising sites. The Zephyrians had never imagined that humans could coordinate across multiple locations. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Maya Patel worked in the equipment maintenance section of Complex 8. She had spent weeks preparing mining vehicles for combat. Heavy drills became weapons. Transport vehicles became assault craft. The aliens had given humans access to powerful machinery without realizing it could be turned against them. Jake felt his heart pound as the moment approached. Around him, 30 humans waited for the signal. These were people who had lived their entire lives in fear. Tonight they would become warriors. The signal came as a soft beep from Carl's modified scanner. Across 5 mining complexes, the uprising began. Jake activated his collar disruptor and felt the metal band around his neck go dead. For the first time in 15 years, he was free to fight. Around him, his crew touched their own necks in wonder as their collars stopped working. "Move," Jake shouted, and 30 humans charged toward the guard station. The first Zephyrian guard they encountered couldn't believe what he was seeing. Humans running toward him instead of away. Humans who should have been screaming in pain from their collars, but instead looked angry and determined. He reached for his weapon, but Lisa's modified mining laser cut him down before he could draw it. Similar scenes played out across all 5 complexes. Zephyrian guards who had grown comfortable after decades of easy control suddenly faced organized human attacks. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but they had no experience fighting coordinated human forces. Jake's team reached the central control room of Complex 7 within minutes. The Zephyrian commander inside was trying desperately to contact his superiors, but Lisa had already cut the communication lines. When he saw Jake and his crew, the alien's yellow eyes went wide with surprise. "Impossible," the commander hissed through his translator. "Humans cannot remove the control collars. You should be dead." Jake raised his mining laser and pointed it at the alien's chest. "We're not the same humans you conquered 23 years ago. We've learned a few things." At Complex 4, Alex Stone led his forces in a direct assault on the main armory. The Zephyrians had kept their best weapons there, confident that no human could ever reach them. Alex's team proved them wrong, capturing enough alien energy weapons to arm a small army. Dr. Patel's modified mining vehicles crashed through the walls of Complex 8's command center. The aliens inside had never seen humans use their own machinery as weapons. Heavy drilling equipment that was meant for breaking rocks now broke through alien defenses. Ryan Clark's communication center became the nerve center for the entire operation. His voice crackled through hidden receivers as he coordinated the 5 separate attacks. "Complex 2 secure. Complex 7 taking the command center now. Complex 4 has the armory." But the aliens were not helpless. As the initial shock wore off, Zephyrian commanders began organizing counterattacks. They had better weapons and decades of military experience. The uprising might have caught them by surprise, but they were professional soldiers. At Complex 3, the Resistance faced their first real test. A squad of Zephyrian shock troopers arrived with heavy weapons and military training. The human fighters there were miners and factory workers, not soldiers. They began to fall back under the alien assault. Jake heard the reports from Ryan's radio and made a decision that would change everything. "Carl, can you override the Complex 3 mining systems from here?" Carl's fingers flew over his modified equipment. "Maybe. If I can access their main computer, I might be able to activate their heavy drilling equipment remotely. Do it." Moments later, the massive drilling machines at Complex 3 came to life without operators. They turned toward the Zephyrian shock troopers and began firing mining lasers in coordinated patterns. The aliens found themselves caught between human fighters in front and automated heavy weapons behind. The tide of battle began to turn. Complex after complex fell to human control. The aliens had better individual weapons, but humans had something the Zephyrians didn't understand: the ability to adapt and improvise during combat. Lisa's team captured 3 Zephyrian hover vehicles and immediately began studying them. Within an hour, Carl had figured out how to operate them. Within 2 hours, human pilots were using alien aircraft to attack remaining Zephyrian positions. As dawn broke over Kepler 442b, 5 mining complexes flew human flags for the first time in 23 years. Over 3,000 humans had been freed from their collars. Hundreds of Zephyrian weapons had been captured. Most importantly, humans had proven they could fight and win. But Jake knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere above them, Zephyrian warships were probably already moving toward their planet. The aliens would not let this rebellion succeed without a fight. Standing in the captured command center of Complex 7, surrounded by his crew and newly freed humans, Jake looked at the alien communication equipment. Soon it would carry a message that would spread across the galaxy. The message was simple. Humans were no longer prisoners. They were warriors, and they intended to fight for their freedom. The war for human liberation had begun. 6 months after the uprising, the mountains of Kepler 442b echoed with the sound of human industry. What had started as 5 captured mining complexes had grown into something the Zephyrians never expected to face. The humans called themselves the Terran Liberation Front, and they were no longer hiding. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of what used to be Mining Complex 7. Now it was Command Base Alpha, the center of human military operations on the planet. Below him, hundreds of humans worked on vehicles and weapons that would have seemed impossible just months ago. The captured Zephyrian hover tanks had been completely rebuilt. Dr. Maya Patel's engineering teams had torn them apart and put them back together with human improvements. The result was vehicles that could move faster and hit harder than anything the aliens had ever built. Better yet, they were designed to be fixed and modified by humans instead of alien technicians. Carl Davis had become something the Zephyrians feared more than any weapon. He was a human who understood their technology better than they did. His workshop alien energy weapons were combined with human engineering in ways that created entirely new types of equipment. His latest creation was a rifle that could punch through Zephyrian armor at twice the range of their own weapons. Lisa Bennett had news that changed everything. Standing in the command center with Jake and the other leaders, she activated a communication screen that showed a woman's face. The woman wore the uniform of a human space fleet officer. "This is Captain Beth Williams of the Terran Resistance Fleet," the woman said. "We've been hiding in the outer system for over a year, waiting for the right moment to make contact. Your uprising has given us that moment." Jake felt his heart stop. "There are human ships out there?" 3 converted cargo vessels with full crews and supplies, Captain Williams replied. "We also have manufacturing equipment and technical personnel from Earth's surviving underground cities. The Zephyrians never conquered our homeworld completely. They just blockaded it and took what they wanted from the colonies." The news spread through the human forces like electricity. Earth had survived. Humanity had ships and technology that the aliens didn't know about. The rebellion on Kepler 442b was not alone, but the Zephyrians were not standing still either. Commander Alex Stone's scouts reported massive alien fleet movements toward their planet. The Empire was sending everything they had to crush the human rebellion before it could spread to other worlds. 200 ships, Alex reported grimly. 50,000 troops. They're not taking any chances this time. Dr. Patel looked up from her work on a new weapon system. "Let them come. We're not the same humans they conquered 23 years ago." She was right. The humans preparing to defend Kepler 442b were nothing like the civilian colonists the Zephyrians had easily defeated decades earlier. These humans had learned to fight from captured alien military manuals. They had weapons that combined the best of human and alien technology. Most importantly, they had something to fight for. Professor Kate Morgan had made a discovery that would change the entire war. She was a scientist who had been studying captured Zephyrians. trying to understand how their bodies worked. What she found was a weakness that no alien doctor had ever noticed. Their nervous systems operate on very specific electromagnetic frequencies, she explained to the gathered commanders. If we can generate the right type of signal, we can disrupt their brain functions without killing them. They'll be unconscious but alive. Carl's eyes lit up with understanding. We can build that into our weapons. Stun settings that work on aliens but not on humans. The implications were enormous. Humans could disable alien forces instead of killing them, then capture their equipment and technology. It was a way to grow stronger with every battle instead of just holding ground. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez had become the best pilot in the human forces. He led a squadron of captured Zephyrian fighters that had been modified with human improvements. His pilots were former miners and factory workers who had learned to fly alien aircraft through trial and error. They made mistakes that trained alien pilots would never make, but they also tried tactics that no alien would ever think of. When the Zephyrian fleet arrived at Kepler 442b, they expected to face a primitive rebellion that could be crushed with overwhelming force. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their every weakness. The first surprise came when the alien fleet tried to establish orbital control. Sam's fighters attacked from directions that should have been impossible, using flying patterns that broke every rule of aerial combat. The human pilots didn't know the rules, so they didn't follow them. Their chaotic attack style confused the alien commanders who had been trained to fight predictable enemies. The second surprise came when the aliens tried to land their ground forces. Jake's defensive positions were not where military doctrine said they should be. Human forces had set up their weapons in locations that made no tactical sense according to alien thinking, but worked perfectly for the actual terrain of Kepler 442b. Professor Morgan's stun weapons proved devastatingly effective. Entire squads of Zephyrian soldiers would advance on human positions, only to collapse unconscious when the defenders activated their new electromagnetic generators. The humans would then capture the alien equipment and add it to their own forces. But the real shock for the Zephyrians came when Captain Williams arrived with her 3 ships. The vessels looked like simple cargo haulers, but they had been completely rebuilt inside with hidden weapons and manufacturing facilities. When they opened fire on the alien fleet, their weapons performed far better than Zephyrian intelligence had said human technology could achieve. The space battle above Kepler 442b became a nightmare for the alien commanders. Every time they thought they understood human capabilities, the humans would do something impossible. Williams's ships moved in formation patterns that confused alien targeting systems. They fired weapons that hit harder than their size suggested they could. Worst of all, they seemed to anticipate alien tactics before the aliens used them. On the ground, Jake led his forces in a series of attacks that destroyed Zephyrian landing zones before the aliens could establish a foothold. His troops moved faster than alien forces expected, hit harder than their equipment should have allowed, and disappeared into mountain tunnels that the aliens couldn't find or follow. Carl's technical teams worked around the clock to study every piece of captured alien equipment. Each battle brought new technology that was immediately improved and turned against its former owners. The humans were learning and adapting faster than the Zephyrians could respond. By the end of the week, the impossible had happened. The largest Zephyrian military force ever assembled against a human world had been defeated. Half their ships were destroyed or captured. Most of their ground forces were either dead or prisoners. The survivors fled back to their empire with reports that no Zephyrian leader wanted to believe. Standing in the command center of Base Alpha, Jake looked at the tactical display showing clear skies above Kepler 442b. For the first time in 23 years, there were no alien ships in orbit around a human world. Lisa activated the long-range communication system that Carl had built from captured alien technology. Her message would reach every human settlement in the galaxy, including Earth itself. This is the Terran Liberation Front calling all human forces. Kepler 442b is free. We have proven that the Zephyrians can be defeated. The war for human liberation has begun, and we are winning. The age of human slavery was ending. The age of human victory had begun. 2 years after the first uprising, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terran Defiance, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship had once been a Zephyrian dreadnought, the pride of their fleet. Now it flew human colors and carried weapons that made it more powerful than anything the aliens had ever built. Jake still found it hard to believe how far they had come. The former mining crew leader now commanded a fleet of 60 ships, each one captured from the Zephyrians and improved with human technology. Behind him, officers who had once been slaves worked at control stations, planning the final battle of the Liberation War. Director Lisa Bennett appeared on the communication screen from her office on New Terra, the first planet liberated after Kepler 442b. As head of the Terran Provisional Government, she coordinated the political and military efforts of 15 free human worlds. Her face showed the strain of 2 years of war, but also the satisfaction of seeing their dream of freedom becoming reality. "The intelligence reports are confirmed, Jake," she said. "We've found Zephyr Prime. The alien homeworld is exactly where our captured officers said it would be. This is our chance to end the war." General Carl Davis joined the conversation from his research station on the Defiance. The young man who had once been born in captivity now led the most advanced technology development program in human space. His teams had created weapons and defensive systems that consistently outperformed anything the Zephyrians could build. "Our new ships are ready," Carl reported. "The quantum resonance weapons will disable their planetary defenses without destroying them. We can take control of their capital without turning it into a wasteland." Dr. Nina Torres had spent 2 years studying captured Zephyrians, learning how their minds worked. What she discovered changed human understanding of their former masters completely. The aliens were not evil conquerors who enjoyed causing suffering. They were simply a species that could not understand any way of thinking except their own rigid hierarchy. "They see the universe as a place where strong species rule weak ones," Nina explained during the final planning meeting. "They conquered us because they believed that was the natural order, but they're not capable of adapting when that order is challenged. Their inability to change tactics is their greatest weakness." Admiral Beth Williams commanded the main attack fleet from her flagship, the Terran Vengeance. Her 3 ships had grown into a force of 30 vessels, each one built in the hidden shipyards that humans had constructed throughout liberated space. The cargo haulers that had once hidden from Zephyrian patrols were now the core of humanity's space navy. The plan for the assault on Zephyr Prime was unlike anything in the history of galactic warfare. Instead of trying to destroy the alien homeworld, the human fleet would demonstrate their technological superiority in a way that could not be ignored or denied. They would surround the planet, disable its defenses, and demand surrender from orbit. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez led the fighter squadrons that would provide cover for the main assault. His pilots flew ships that looked like captured Zephyrian fighters, but performed far better than the originals. Human modifications had improved their speed, weapons, and maneuverability beyond anything alien engineers thought possible. The journey to Zephyr Prime took 3 weeks through hyperspace. During that time, Jake walked through his ship and marveled at what his crew had accomplished. Former miners operated quantum computers. Ex-factory workers maintained fusion reactors. People who had lived their entire lives as slaves now controlled technology that their former masters could not match. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system, the aliens were waiting for them. 200 Zephyrian warships defended their homeworld, confident that no enemy could threaten the heart of their empire. They had controlled this region of space for over 1,000 years. The battle began with Sam's fighters engaging the outer defense patrols. The alien pilots expected to face the same chaotic human tactics they had encountered before. Instead, they found themselves fighting opponents who had learned and improved. Human pilots now combined their natural creativity with disciplined training that made them superior to any alien fighter force. Admiral Williams led the main fleet in a coordinated assault on the Zephyrian battle line. Her ships moved in formations that confused alien commanders who had never seen vessels coordinate so effectively. The Terran fleet fought as a single unit, while the alien ships struggled to adapt to human tactics they couldn't understand. Carl's quantum resonance weapons proved devastatingly effective against Zephyrian technology The alien ships simply stopped working when hit by the new human weapons. Their crews found themselves floating helplessly in space, while human boarding parties captured their vessels intact. But the real surprise came when Jake's flagship engaged, the Zephyrian command ship, directly. The Terran Defiance had once been the pride of the alien fleet, but human improvements had made it faster, stronger, and more heavily armed than its original design. When the two ships fired on each other, there was no contest. Human technology had surpassed its creators. Within 6 hours, the space around Zephyr Prime was clear of defending ships. The human fleet took position in orbit around the alien homeworld, while the planet's surface batteries tried desperately to drive them away. Carl's resonance weapons disabled the planetary defenses one by one until the aliens had no way to resist. Jake opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian High Command on the planet below. The alien leaders who appeared on his screen looked shocked and confused. They could not understand how their former slaves had become their technological superiors. "I am Admiral Jake Morrison of the Terran Liberation Fleet," Jake said calmly. 25 years ago, you conquered human worlds and enslaved our people. You believed we were weak and primitive. Today, your entire home fleet lies disabled in space around us. Your planetary defenses are offline. Your empire's age of expansion is over. The Zephyrian High Commander, an ancient alien whose scales had turned white with age, stared at Jake through the communication screen. "This is impossible. Humans are animals. You cannot have developed such technology." "We didn't develop it," Jake replied. "We took your technology and made it better. That's what humans do. We adapt. We improve. We never stop learning. Those are things your species never understood about us." The negotiations took 3 days. The Zephyrian leaders struggled to accept that their empire had been defeated by the species they had considered least dangerous. But the evidence was undeniable. Human ships controlled their space. Human weapons could destroy their cities. Human technology had surpassed their own. The final surrender document was signed aboard the Terran Defiance. The Zephyrian Empire agreed to free all human slaves, return all conquered human worlds, and provide reparations for the damage they had caused. In return, humans would share their advanced technology and help the aliens rebuild their society along more peaceful lines. Jake stood in the observation lounge of his flagship, watching Zephyrian ships being escorted to human-controlled facilities where they would be converted for peaceful purposes. Lisa's face appeared on a nearby screen, smiling for the first time in years. "It's over, Jake," she said. "Every human, slave in the galaxy will be free within 6 months. The Zephyrian Empire is disbanded. The worlds they conquered are forming a new federation based on cooperation instead of domination." Carl joined them with his latest report. "The technology sharing program is working better than we hoped. The aliens are actually eager to learn human methods now that they understand how effective they are. Some of their scientists are asking to work directly with our research teams." Dr. Torres had perhaps the most remarkable news. The younger Zephyrians especially are adapting to human ideas about equality and cooperation. They're calling it the liberation philosophy. They want to spread these concepts throughout their former empire. Jake looked out at the stars and thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a mining tunnel on a distant world to the bridge of the most advanced warship in the galaxy. From slaves to liberators. From prisoners to the dominant power in their region of space. The age of human imprisonment was over. The age of human leadership had begun. And throughout the galaxy, species that had lived under Zephyrian rule were learning that freedom was possible, that cooperation was stronger than domination, and that sometimes the greatest victories came not from destroying your enemies but from teaching them a better way to live.